things have taken a toll on him, but on the
Yeah.
whole, he still looks pretty good. He's got
I
the
was
odd
gonna say,
scars.
as of now, he looks like he's in his 110s, but yeah, he's still out there doing stuff. So, you
He
know.
looks he looks better than Keith Richards, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy. That's John, as planned. And today we are going to be digging into a song offered up by John that I'm going to go listen to. We're going to come back and chat it up. But in order to get the ball rolling, John, you're going to have to put it on me, man. What are we listening to today?
The phrase goes, it's what happens to the weasel. It goes pop. Yes, it's Iggy.
Oh,
Um, that was convoluted. So yeah, Iggy Pop. And the track is Nightclubbing.
Nightclubbing. All right, Nightclubbing with Iggy. All right, cool. Well, as always, whether it's the Stooges or the man himself, I look forward to giving the song a listen. So yeah, let me check this one out, and I'll tell you what I've made of Nightclubbing by Iggy Pop. Hmm. Yeah, this is really cool so far. I know it's not much; it's pretty scant, right? But it's got that um kind of swaggy drum beat where it's two hits of the bass drum, then a hit of the bass drum, and what sounds like the snare, doo 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 kind of motif going on. Interesting. Yeah, let's take that back. And it sounds like horns came in there. It's like I don't know. I instantly, because they're so low, I instantly think of like elephants blowing out of their trunk, but in this case they've got like fedoras and sunglasses. But yeah, let's hear that again. Ooh, that bass. Keys. Groovy little number.
Night clubbing, we're night clubbing.
Oh my
What's happening?
oh my god. It didn't take long, like 5 seconds. I know, I'm pretty sure because the music sounds a little bit different from what I recall, and it's been a while since I've heard this, but I had an ex who was a big Grace Jones fan, and I think she has. I'm pretty sure she has this. She's done this track. So yeah, wow. I didn't know it was. I'm assuming originally an Iggy Pop number that she covered because it couldn't have been that long after this that she had done it. I think, but it sounds a little bit different. Like I think the arrangement or instrumentation is slightly different in her version. But yeah, that the and the way she delivers it is I mean the Iggy's delivery is pretty interesting too, but hers is a little bit more forward. Um, but yeah, it's that night club and that's the that got me. So I'm pretty sure, and it's been God years since I've heard that, but I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with this one. like adjacently, not like directly. Wow, interesting shit. Okay, let's take it back.
Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing, we're what's happening. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing, we're an ice
That's so
machine. We'll see people, brand new people, there's something to see. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing. Oh, isn't it wild?
Ah, damn, it sounds like a guitar. It sounds like a cat in heat. Let me hear that again. That's really interesting shit. Oh my goodness.
Nightclubbing, oh, isn't it wild?
Yeah, that's wild.
Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing. We're walking through town. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing. We walk like a ghost.
Interesting.
We learn dances.
I like this double tracking.
New dances, like the nuclear bomb. When we're nightclubbing, bright white clubbing. Oh, isn't it wild?
Interesting. This is, I don't know if this is intentional or if it's just a glimpse into my own thought process, but when he says bright white clubbing, giving that it's this time, like this era, and who we're talking about, and the fact that it involves night clubbing, I instantly think of cocaine when I hear white and any allusion to night clubbing circa this time in history. So yeah, not that people aren't doing that now, but I just know that around this time, this cast of characters, Iggy and the company that he kept, was probably dabbling in some interesting extracurriculars of the narcotic variety. So yeah, that's instantly where my brain goes. Really cool. Not that. Really cool double tracking of the vocals. This, he uses the word ghost, and there is kind of this haunting kind of delivery going on at the same time. So yeah, cool stuff. Ah, more of that guitar. Fade out on that wild guitar. All right. Yeah, I really enjoyed that for a lot of reasons. One, that sort of epiphany moment where this may have happened once before in doing all these songs with either Greg or John over the years. Obviously, mostly with John at this point, but this idea of hearing a song before and having this epiphany moment that, oh my God, you're familiar with it. Except in this case, it wasn't this version of the song that I'd heard before. It was that Grace Jones, which now I'm going to have to go listen to that to like, because again, like I said, it's been years to like hold them up against each other. Yeah, I really loved the way they changed the vocal track in the latter half of the song after that really interesting guitar lead. I really liked that guitar lead. At first, I was like on the fence, like like a cat in heat, but it started to grow on me. His vocals cut out, and then it kind of was left to its own devices to kind of like take center stage, and it became, I don't know, it took form better at that point. And like at first it was a bit abrasive, but what it turned into was kind of like this, the musical equivalent to a really beautiful but wild flower. Like it's got thorns and prickly bits, but the petals are lovely. It's, it's got jagged bits to it, but aesthetically it's still pleasing. And that was kind of like the musical equivalent. And then it would, after those really interesting verses with the double track vocals, it kind of reappears. I can appreciate it that much more, and it kind of takes us to the end. Yeah, I mean, it was all set to this kind of like basic kind of blues scale, which is something that I'm super familiar with and obviously enjoy listening to. So that was another hit for me. Yeah, um, fan of this, and really interested in the idea that you can have Iggy Pop doing this, I assume writing this, um, and releasing it, and then someone like Grace Jones coming along later and doing it, which then just speaks to me like, okay, this song clearly resonated with at least one other musician and probably other musicians. Um, so that's interesting as well. I'd love to learn a bit more about how that came to be and maybe what other, you know, if any other artists tapped into this like Miss Jones did. But yeah, I overall really enjoyed it a lot. Fun, interesting listen, kind of that strutting rhythm, like rhythmic movement to the song. Also really infectious and obviously just kind of inherently cool. So yeah, dug it. Another hit by Iggy. Let's get back to John and learn a bit more about the track.
Lena Zaffaroni, he's back. So you've had listened to Nightclubbing by Mr. Pop. What do you think?
Things kick off literally with this one, with this grooving little drum motif that's rooted on the sort of 2-beat kick drum. So it's kind of like that doo-doo. And then right after that is a kick drum and then a snare. Which, all cobbled together gives it this rhythm, kind of like a cool, confident movement to it as that drum beat hits of the double, like the 2 bass hits, then the bass snare. And soon this beat is accompanied by even more swaggering attitude as the horns join the mix, and they're these low sounding horns. So it has this, it's almost like listening to 2 elephants dressed as the Blues Brothers, kind of blowing out of their their trunks. I imagine them with wayfarers and a fedora, up there. Uh, Great sound, loved it. And then it comes this the piece de resistance, in my estimation, of course, in the form of the bass, just kind of thumping away at the bottom end. And in just a moment, the keys start in, and they're kind of chopping away at the chords over top of this now super beefy blues rhythm section that they've established. Sounding great. Iggy comes in, singing the first verse, and I'm telling you, we're 5 seconds into this, and I realize I know this song. Now, I know this song, but I don't know this version. And this is weird because in any other walk of life, I probably would have a better idea of having heard the Iggy Pop version of any song, especially versus Grace Jones. But I have an ex who is a big Grace Jones fan. So I know the Grace Jones version of this song, and
Yeah.
the album, right? Like she's like super sleek and angular with like that kind of flat top and the shoulder pad coat. Like, yes, I know, which is so wild to me that this is how I know it, but go on.
I mean, there are some sort of very small-minded people who think that Grace Jones is talentless, and is all substance and so all style and no substance. And yeah, I'm one of them. I can't stand her. I thought her cover of this song is shit. But each to their own.
To be fair, it has been like years since I've heard her version, to the point where the only thing that stood out to me was just that, like, oftentimes throughout the verses, nightclubbing is like said. So it's like nightclubbing, blah, 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 nightclubbing. Blah. So that's what, because he's doing the same thing. But he's got more of this kind of like reserved, or like, especially in the first verse, because I'll get into that in a bit too. How the verses kind of changed in how they're vocally delivered. But always brooding a little bit, and she's more of this like it borderline campy way of delivering, night clubbing kind of way of doing it. So that's what really stood out to me. I think the arrangement might be a little bit different, or even the instrumentation slightly a little bit different in her version. I'm gonna have to go back and check it out. Probably a glutton for punishment that I am, but to really be able to hold these two up together now that I've recently heard this version of it. But I was beside myself thinking, are you fucking serious? I know this song. So anyway, that sunk in, and I get over that and myself, and around the 146 mark or so, we get this really interesting scratching on the guitar that gives off all of this like slightly distant dissonance just behind Iggy's voice and those insistent piano chords. However, the vocals cut out shortly thereafter, and now the guitar takes more of the lead role in the mix, literally and figuratively. And it blossoms into this, like, I compared it to like a wildflower. Sure, it comes equipped with thorns and prickly bits, and be careful when you grab it, but just from an aesthetic point of view, it's really quite beautiful, even though it's all jagged and not pretty. So and I liked that aspect of it, because here is this really interesting way of delivering a lead guitar over blues, which is usually, smooth lead guitar work over top of kind of like a blues rhythm, and this is a bit of a different beast altogether. The lead cuts out, and that leaves the rhythms to swagger on a bit before Iggy rejoins, delivering the next stanza of lyrics. These I caught more onto because the way they were tracked in this made it hard to not pick up on the lyrical content, to be honest with you. So we get nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing, we're walking through town, nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing, we walk like a ghost, which is kind of interesting because the way the vocals are double tracked kind of has this eerie, weird, otherworldly kind of sound to it. And it definitely gives these verses their own distinctive sound versus the first verse. Easy now. Which again we've talked about in the past, like doing a little something to make it different than what preceded it, even though musically it's the same bit. You're adding and doing a little bit of things just to keep it fresh. So I really liked that. And this bit was followed by, we learn dances, brand new dances, like the nuclear bomb. When we're nightclubbing, bright white clubbing. Oh, isn't it wild? The allusion to both nightclubbing and the word white instantly makes me think of cocaine. And I'm not sure if that's an accurate association based on the lyrics, or if that is some sort of indictment on the way of my way of thinking. Nonetheless, it's an interesting lyric, as is the allusion to a dance called the nuclear bomb, which, if it is an actual dance, it's not one that I'm familiar with in any way. After this bit of lyrics, we get treated to more of that interesting lead guitar work, as it sonically stutters and struts its way over the horns, keys, and rhythm section. And this continues for several seconds as the song shifts to a fade out and then comes to an end. So yeah, to be fair, I haven't, like I mentioned, I haven't heard that Grace Jones version in years, and only really vividly remember her vocals. though I also seem to recall the production and arrangement being a little bit different than what we got here. I can say that, like, without me having revisited, I'm pretty confident that I like this version much, much better. Regardless, it was fun having this epiphany moment as I was listening to the track, especially so early on. But and like I mentioned, I really enjoyed the track. Would love to learn more about it and sort of the timeline and where all this fits. So, spill the beans, John.
You know, I almost mentioned Grace Jones in the intro. I thought, no, let's not clutter it up because he won't know that. Let's just leave it to one side. Unbelievable. Well, thanks for listening to this. So yeah, this is a bit of a I don't know if it's a cultish kind of one of the Iggy songs. It's one of his big ones. I picked this, and I picked it because of the timeline and the people involved and everything, and it's pretty cool as well. So yeah, we have covered in a previous episode some of Mr. Pop's output and the Stooges TVI. If you're in any doubt what TVI means, watch the episode and read about each of the comments, and you'll find out. But also recently we've done a David Bowie episode, Station to Station, and these two can join into this episode, which is what Iggy and David did next. That's
Okay,
what it's called.
is this Germany? Is that right? Didn't they
Yeah,
link
yeah.
up?
Well,
Okay.
France, Germany, yeah. So
Okay.
1973, Bowie's hired to mix the Stooges' 1973 Raw Power album and all the mess with that. Soon after its release, the band broke up in 74 because of infighting, lack of major label support, and Mr. Pop's drug addiction, which also caused Pop and Bowie to stop collaborating. So after the breakup, this is some of these that you won't know some of this. So after the breakup, Iggy tried to establish himself as a solo artist and auditioned to join other bands, such as The Doors and Kiss. Imagine.
No,
These ventures were unsuccessful, thank God. Realizing his heroin addiction was destroying him, he checked into the Neuropsychiatric Institute at the University of California in Los Angeles to help get sober. Bowie was one of Pop's few visitors during his stay. Pop said, "No one else came, not even my so-called friends in LA, but David came." So Pop and Bowie reunited mid-75 and attempted to record a few tracks, but both men were so deep in their addictions that the sessions were just, impossible. And Bowie commented, "He'll never make it to the recording studios in time. Iggy is doomed." So Pop had rehab stints in 74 and 76, both unsuccessful. Knowing he had to become sober, he accepted an invitation from Bowie to join his 1976 Iceland tour. By this point, Bowie also wanted to rid himself of his cocaine addiction. During the tour, Pop was really impressed with Bowie's work ethic, later stating that he had learned all of his self-help techniques through Bowie on the tour. There were further talks of Pop doing a solo album of Bowie producing it. And towards the end of the tour, both Bowie and Pop realized they just, for their own sanity and probably to stay alive, they had to get out of Los Angeles. So they decided to move to Europe. After visiting the Chateau de Hérouville in France, which was the same place where Bowie recorded his 1973 album Pin-Ups, Bowie decided to produce an entire album for Pop there, and he booked 2 months of studio time in the Chateau in the summer of 76. So they start working on this, The Idiot. So personnel, it's really interesting. He gets to the Chateau. I didn't write all of this down. The owner and some people there, he gets to help flesh out the songs, and then he brings in his own crew, Bowie, to then finalize the album. So Iggy Pop's doing lead vocals, David Bowie's doing guitar, synthesizer, electric piano, saxophone. You can hear him on this album, soundsphone, brilliant, and xylophone and backing vocals. Carlos Alomar on guitar, that's who you heard doing the crazy break. Phil Palmer guitar, I think, perhaps actually it might be Phil Palmer, I'll check my notes. George Murray, bass, Lauren Thibault, bass, Michelle Santangeli, drums, and Dennis Davis, drums. So this album is described by Pop as a cross between Kraftwerk and James Brown, and it's definitely a departure from the proto-punk of the Stooges. with more mechanical sound and electronic overtones. So it started in June 76 and continued into July. Further sessions took place at Music Land Studios in Munich in August. So still pretty quick. June, July, August. Bowie composed pretty much all the music, and he also played on every track as well. And for the most part, for my opinion, it does sound like a Bowie album.
Yeah,
And
his vocal delivery, it sounded like Bowie, even though it was him. There were still shades of it. You could hear it.
well, there was Bowie in the background as well in the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
verse.
The
And
double
what it's
track.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what is interesting is both take turns to do an impression of Lou Reed. So you're hearing Pop, Lou Reed, and Bowie, and it's fantastic. But anyway, so yeah, and that Musicland Studios is owned by Giorgio Moroder. So again, really interesting stuff going on there. So Bowie, as I say, he kind of uses the stepping stone from station to station that we just heard. In between that and Low, which is the next and the first Berlin album. And it's certainly Bowie's first flirtations with the German electronic sounds of like Kraftwerk or Neu! Cluster. So when they were doing this, Iggy was writing the lyrics in response to hearing the music that Bowie was creating. He often improvised on a microphone, which is something that really impressed Bowie, the way he was able to do that, because Bowie couldn't. But he then tried that on the album after Heroes. The title of this album is taken from Dostoevsky's novel of the same name. And the cover of Mr. Pop there is actually from Eric Heckel's painting called Rock Roll, which is of this strange sort of man in a weird pose. And it's also the inspiration for the cover of Bowie's Heroes album. It was like, so yeah, the recording continued, as I said, in August at Musicland Studios, Giorgio Moroder. Here, Iggy did most of his vocals, and the guitar overdubs were done by Phil Palmer. Phil Palmer described the creative collaboration with Pop and Bowie as vampiric, because he'd never seen the artist during the day, and the collaboration was stimulating but disquieting, in his words. Now, Bowie's original choice guitarist was Robert Fripp, and you can really hear that in the style of this guitar. Fripp did come on board later for Heroes, but by this stage, Fripp with Kim Crimson, but also he'd been working with Brian Eno, so there you get the sort of connection, Eno, Bowie, Fripp, and it's all there. So you can really hear that in the sort of style of this guitar. It's not quite Fripptronics, but it's very interesting guitar. It sounds amazing. Bowie wanted to make sure that he got his own album out in stores before Iggy's, so people didn't think he was like riding on the coattails of it. Thibault said that Bowie didn't want people to think he'd been inspired by Iggy's album, when in fact it was all really the same thing. So Bowie then, so you remember June, July in France, August Berlin. Bowie then recorded Low, his new album, in September and October. So that's an amazing 5 months of creative output from Bowie. RCA released Low in January, so it's really quick. He's finished it in October and it's on the shelves in January. They were worried because Low sounded similar to The Idiot, that they wouldn't sell well. So when the first single from Low, Sound Vision, was a massive commercial success, it gave Bowie enough credit to persuade RCA to release The Idiot, which they did in March of 77. The Idiot peaked at 72 in the USA charts, which is okay. It spent 13 weeks in the Billboard charts. It also spent 3 weeks in the UK album charts, reaching number 30. So it's the first ever album by Iggy Pop that got into the top 40 in the UK. And again, he shows a real commitment to his friend here, because although RCA was hoping that Bowie would tour to support Low, his new album, he opted instead to support Iggy Pop on his tour, and he played keyboards. And he actually put the band together for Iggy Pop as well. He was determined not to undermine him on the tour. So this was Pop's first tour since the Stooges had split up. The supporting opening act was a young band called Blondie, who they'd heard their first album, really liked. And so they both invited them along. So this is really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And And Bowie was absolutely adamant about not taking the spotlight away from Iggy Pop. So he would stay behind his keyboard. He wouldn't engage with the audience or anything. So, hang on a minute, it's not David Bowie playing keyboards. It's like, must have been amazing. But yeah, so people were still, even though they're praising Pop and his stage presence, they're still saying that, oh, Bowie's really in charge. But the Idiot album and the subsequent tour earned Pop greater fame and success than he ever achieved with the Stooges, so it did the trick.
Yeah.
However, even during interviews about the new album, everyone just asked him about Bowie rather than his own stuff.
Did he harbor resentment for that?
I don't think so.
Good.
Think so. He must have recognised that really Bowie hauled him out of the shit.
Yeah.
Enemy described the album as totally riveted and fettered to a thoroughly unhealthy aroma of evil and Twilight Zone zombie time unease. And there is that sort of weirdness about it. In a contemporary review for the album, Rolling Stone termed it the most savage indictment of rock posturing ever recorded and a necrophiliac's delight. So, yeah, they were keen. Another contemporary review from Circus magazine at the time compared the Idiot to Pop's Private with the Stooges, noting the difference in his vocal performance, saying, he doesn't sound alive, he sounds automated. They further complimented, and apparently that's a good thing in their eyes. They complimented Pop's lyricism, saying Iggy's got the tainted charisma of a dead poet. Fantastic stuff. Clash magazine wrote on the record's 35th anniversary, the Idiot stands as a dark, dense, and desolate display of an artist confronting his demons head on and growing up in the process. It was bleakly revolutionary then, and it is now. So, this track you listen to, Nightclubbing, was written by David Bowie and Iggy Pop. The song was written and recorded in Berlin. It features Bowie on piano with the aid of a Roland drum machine. So that the starting off bit. Bowie felt they needed real drums to finish it off after they'd done it, but Pop said, no, keep it. It kicks ass. It's better than a drummer. So that was it. He wrote the lyrics to this on the spot within, quotes, 10 minutes. Bowie suggested that to him that he write about walking through the night like ghosts. So that's how you get those lines and that sort of eerie feel to it. It is a bit sort of zombie-ish in the way, Nightclubbing. The song's riff has often been compared to Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll, which, considering Gary Glitter's history, is not a great thing. But that sort of beat, and that is very much a 70s sound. It was everywhere, and that sort of glam rock, it's very similar to a lot of stuff. One journalist described it as the bleak sound of the 1985 disco, as ghostly electronic washes skywrite phrases over an unsettling, distorted disco pulse. Lyrically, Iggy said that Nightclubbing was my comment on what it's like hanging out with him every night, Bowie, and about the incredible coldness and deathly feeling you have after you've done something like that and how much you enjoy it. It could be Los Angeles or Paris, New York, or anywhere, really. And that's a really interesting sort of comment, isn't it? But there you go. The song's been considered by critics as a career highlight, along with Lust for Life, and has been covered by many artists, loads, including obviously Christian. And it's been featured on lots of films and TV shows as well. Lyrics, not a lot, so very quickly. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing, we're what's happening. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing, we're an ice machine. We see people, brand new people. There's something to see. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing. Oh, isn't it wild? And then I put in brackets, guitar squall. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing. We're walking through town. Nightclubbing, we're nightclubbing. We walk like a ghost. We learn dances, brand new dances, like the nuclear bomb. When we're nightclubbing, bright white clubbing. Oh, isn't it wild? More squall. Although reviewers consider the Idiot worthy in its own right, diehard fans have criticised the album as being unrepresentative of his repertoire and evidence of him being co-opted by Bowie for the latter's own evil ends. In a contemporary review of the record, Cream magazine said, as the star of the Idiot, Iggy Pop seems more under David Bowie's manipulative thumb than ever before, a condition that can be taken as a positive or a negative. Bowie's biographer, Chris O'Leary, considers the Idiot a Bowie album just as much as a Pop one. Although Bowie's Berlin trilogies consisted of like Low, Heroes, and Lodger, O'Leary argues that the true Berlin trilogy is The Idiot, Low, and Heroes, with Lust for Life as a supplement and Lodger as an epilogue. Bowie himself later admitted, this in quotes, "Poor Iggy, in a way, became a guinea pig for what I wanted to do with sound. I just didn't have the material at the time, and I didn't feel like writing at all. I felt much more like laying back and getting behind someone else's work, so that album's opportune creatively." I mean, to be fair, he did a good job. He wrote some great stuff, it's my favorite Iggy Pop album. I prefer this to Lust for Life, but Susie Sue, obviously, is the man. She described the Idiot as a reaffirmation of that our suspicions were true. The man was a genius, and what a voice! That sound and production is so direct and uncompromised. Beside there's a major influence on post-punk, industrial, and gothic rock artists, including Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, and Joy Division. This album in particular influenced Joy Division, who formed in the months between the release of Low and The Idiot. Their debut album, Known Pleasures, drew heavily on the industrial soundscapes and relentless percussion of tracks like Nightclubbing and Mass Production. Also worth noting that The Idiot was found still playing on the turntable in the room of the band's singer Ian Curtis when he was found having died by suicide. So that album was playing when he killed himself. The closing track of this album, Mass Production, is often referred to as Pop's Station to Station track, and has been cited as an influence on lots of acts, including Smashing Pumpkins and Radiohead. And it's a bit of a corker as well. Pitchfork later ranked The Idiot at number 96 on its list of 100 best albums of the 1970s. And the album was included in the book, 1,001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. And it just so happens. Now, here's something that's quite special. So it's 1977, okay? Which is, 1977 and all that. But really, it's Bowie and Pop's year. So there is The Idiot, Mr. Pop, on the same page as Suicide, Dennis Wilson, P. Gabriel's first album. We've done stuff like that. Next page, Marquee Moon, Bat of Hell, if you like, that sort of thing. And then you get to Elvis Costello, My Aim Is True. And then you get to the next one, Iggy Pop, Lust for Life, still 1977. Ian Jury, New Boots and Panties, we did this. Never mind the bollocks, obviously. What you also get, if you go the other way, is you get, hi, Garumba, you get David Bowie, Heroes, 1977. That's the cover I was talking about. Fleetwood Mac Rumours, some people like that. Talking Heads, 77. I mean, Jesus Christ, what a year. And then you go to the next page, you've got Wire, Pink Flag, and you've got David Bowie, Low, still 1977.
Jesus, that is a good year. And a good year to be either or both of them, like, because there were a lot of shit coming out under their name.
I mean, so yes, I have. So, yeah, and you consider about it, in that year they came out, and it wasn't all worked on in that year, but you got this, my favourite pop album. You got this, which is great. I mean, Lust for Life is a fantastic passenger, etc. You've got this, which is almost sometimes my favourite Bowie album. And then you got this, which is an absolute fucking perler as well. All in the 1 year they came out. Amazing. So
it's crazy to think you could be that productive on any drug. Now, heroin
coming off.
Yeah, coming off too. You're right. You're right. Now when they were in Europe and they're doing this work together, are they keeping clean or are they finding it hard to maintain? Okay, all right. Because I was thinking, what a goddamn nightmare. You know how it sucks to be around someone who's shit-faced wasted and you're sober? Imagine someone fucked up on dope and someone high on coke, and just the absolute, like, opposite ends of the spectrum they would be in trying to create art like that. It would just be like, Can
you imagine them even trying to get a taxi? I mean, it would just be
anything. Yeah. It's like the two of them are tasked to team up to make a PB&J, and it's like, no, not happening. There's peanut butter all over the wall, jellies everywhere.
This, has a happy ending, in terms of they got straight, they got some amazing music out of it, saved themselves, they went on, Iggy against the odds, not because of talent, but because of what happened to him and the way he looked after himself. He had a career, which was doubtful in like 1975 that he would be alive, let alone have a career.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not know this, but he kind of half moved over here and had a regular slot on BBC Radio 6 Music. and became, sort of national treasure in this country, very much adopted by all the people over here. Well into his, he's still doing it, I think. Well into his 60s, 70. Things have taken a toll on him, but on the whole, he still looks pretty good. He's got the old scars.
As of now, he looks like he's in his 110s, but yeah, he's still out there doing stuff. So
he looks better than Keith Richards, that's for sure.
More power to him.
Cool. All right, so I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Sandy. I just thought it was really interesting in terms of the timeline as well. There's some cool stuff going on there. Brilliant. All right, well, thanks for listening to this. Folks out there, tell us what you think. If you like this, please do hit the like button. And drop some comments. I'm sure there's more interesting factoids I miss about this particular period in Iggy and David's life and their adventures. Tell us what you think of this. What's your favourite? I would suppose most people probably prefer Lust for Life than The Idiot, but that's just me, contrary to the last. Love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Look at all this meaty goodness you're missing out on. And you could have it Monday to Friday on a weekly basis. And we won't even invoice to the end of the month. There you go.
Yeah.
So that being said, thanks again so much for watching. And we'll see all of you in the next episode of The Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.